Hello. Today I want to talk about stress. Dr. Hans Selye, famous researcher, who is actually called the father of the study of stress, he talked about how animals and humans need to use energy to adapt. It's called adaptation energy. In other words, when an animal is put into some sort of a stressful situation, it has to adapt. And predictable processes occur. But what's important for today's discussion is that adaptation requires energy. It requires using up a little bit of the fund of life force that we have. We use a little bit of it up when we have to adapt. It occurs for animals and also for humans. We have to use up energy to adapt. So what I want you to see today is that when you fall, and fall is the right word, to temptation. In other words, something entices you. Often it's like a promise, a lying promise, a promise to your ego. An appeal to your ego with some lying promise of greatness, or glory, being worshipped, something like that. And to think about that lie, that promise is exciting, and you dwell upon it and dream of it and daydream of it. And then what happens is you are being tempted to partake of it, to find that experience and partake of it. That's the idea. And it nudges you. Whatever it is, whatever the source of that lying promise is, nudges you ever so slowly. Yeah, sometimes it pushes you right into it. Do it, it says. Do it, do it, do it. This is your only chance. You'll never have an opportunity like this again. Do it, do it. Yeah, it'll do that. But if you are, but if you're not so easily enticed, in other words, you have a sense of right and wrong. You sense that it's something you shouldn't be doing. It's not right for you. It's not right for you somehow. Then it nudges you in that direction, a little bit at a time. One small step at a time, and it seems harmless, doesn't it? What do they call it? The slippery slope. A little bit closer. It's like, the classic example, someone at the office. You have a married man or a married woman, and there's someone at the office. There's something in their glance, something in the way they look at you, has a promise of something in it, doesn't it? And you start to think about it and dwell upon it and like it. And before you know it, you find yourself around where they are. And then before you know it, you're having coffee in the morning with some excuse. And before you know it, it's lunch. And before you know it, see? Well, it's something like that. It nudges you on. The lying promise of education, of knowledge, or of greatness, or of power, or of applause, or of security. It could be anything. And your ego goes for. It nudges you in that direction. And eventually you partake of it. But when you do, whatever that is, you now you now have immersed, first you immersed yourself in the thought. See, you immersed yourself in the thoughts, the daydream, the fantasy. You immersed yourself in the fantasy. And then eventually you immerse yourself in the experience. And when you do, you have now entered a new environment. That's right. And your physical being, see, your soul, of course, you have cohabited with temptation, and you have allowed temptation to get your ear, and you listen to it, and you believed it, and you ended up following it. But your body now is has to adapt to this lower state. See, in a higher state of being, if you never went for temptation, if you never resented, if you never stepped over that line, that metaphysical line, if you never went for a lying promise, if you always just did, what was next for you, intuitively, was right, then you would never have changed for the worse. Your character would have remained intact. In fact, by meeting those moments of temptation and not succumbing, you would grow, especially when you reached within. When you reach within to draw upon some others, a support from God, from what you know is right in your heart. The cry of the soul is silent and without complaint, and God answers your prayer, and He assists you. Then you grow in character, because now you are immersed into a good environment, immersed into a heavenly environment. You see, immersed into God's environment. But when you go for the temptation, you become immersed in it, and then in a physical environment. And then you change. When someone goes to work in a big corporation where there's a lot of temptation, isn't there? And they fall for it one way or another. They're ambitious, or they're resentful, or judgmental, or something or other. Whatever it is, they go for those temptations. Then years later you see them, they've changed. They're not the same person anymore. People get involved with some gang, or they get involved with drugs, or they get involved with some naughty person at the office. They're changed. They're not the same. They go for education, the promise of education, of knowledge, of being great through knowledge and solving all your problems through knowledge and technology and learning, leaving God out. Then you change. You change. But the only point I'm trying to make today is that, what's the old expression? There's no free lunch. No such thing as a free lunch. Or another expression, the piper must be paid. So you pay the piper with your life. You give it your life, and you give some of your life force up to adapt to this new environment, this new lower environment. And so you give up a little bit of your life. So every time you sin, every time you step over the line, every time you go for a lying promise, even when you just cohabit with it in your mind and dwell upon it and fantasize about it and daydream about greatness or glory or worship or being admired or whatever it is, or getting revenge, you use up energy there too. Did you know that? You do. You're just daydreaming away like that. You use up some of your life force. But especially when you immerse yourself, when you're tempted, goaded, prodded, challenged, teased, enticed, seduced, over the line, and finally you immerse yourself in it. Well, then you're in a new environment to which you must adapt. And you use up energy in that process of adaptation. Now, do you only have a limited amount of life force? Hans Selye did experiments upon mice, and found that when they were challenged with something like cold, very great cold, well, some of them deteriorated right away and died, but some of them adapted to the cold, and they survived and they went on. But then soon they too died. That's right. So they appeared to be fine, but then all of a sudden they too died. Why? Because they had to use up their life force in adapting to that cold, you see. So I want to keep this short and simple. Now can you see so now there are going to be stresses in life, aren't there? Well, you have to learn how to meet stress properly. And you have to learn how to resist psychic stress. You know, where someone teases you, challenges you, puts you down, someone does something cruel, someone does something unjust, or someone praises your ego, tells you how great you are, whatever that stress is. See, there's a stress both ways. You have to learn to resist without resenting. See? Most of us, how do we resist? See? And in that resistance is adaptation. Do you understand? The mouse or the rat, the mouse is put in cold, into a cold environment. It has to adapt, and it adapts to the cold by resisting the cold. And it uses up its energy resisting the cold. You see how that is? So when you resent something, that resentment is resistance. And that resistance uses up your life force. See? But the other alternative is to give in. See, when you've fallen from your spiritual roots, from your ground of being, when you've fallen from innocence, from being close to what's right and living according to what's right and obeying what's right and loving what's right, when you fall from that, then you become an animal, a clever animal. And the only thing you know then is to conform or rebel. See? Resist with resentment or conform, give in. Resist or give in. Or what you usually do is you resent, then you give in, and then you resent again. See? But in both ways you give over your life force. When you give in to another, you're giving yourself to them. See, that's also a failure. They take your energy. That's right. They take your energy. Or you give in and serve them. They want you to serve them, to give to them, to give them money, to give them your time, to give them your life, to give them your energy, to give them your loyalty, whatever they want from you. Yeah, you give it to them, and as you're giving it to them, you also give them a little piece of your life. So either way, you see, it's not good. So what do you need? So you must learn how to meet stress of temptation without resenting it on the one hand, or giving in, throwing in the towel and giving into it on the other. And how do you do that? Well, you obey your marching orders. Your marching orders are love God, love principle, love what's right, and don't resent other people. Be patient with other people. So you hold your ground and you reach within. You hold your ground, reach within. If something doesn't seem right, see, and you trust what you know in your heart. Somehow you know that something's not quite right, so you just don't do it. You don't go for it. Or if it stresses you with something cruel, you just watch it. You just watch it. You don't react. You don't become angry. You don't become resentful. Just watch. And when you watch, see, you're standing back. You're not a part of it. You're not immersing yourself in it. And then the temptation passes. And You grow from that, because when you see, when you don't react, then what you are is strengthened by that temptation instead of weakened. If you go for the temptation, either resenting it or giving into it, it takes your energy. But if you resist with enlightenment, with intuition, with reason, with patience, with long suffering, see? Without judging, without resenting, without hating, without using. Then in order to do that, you call upon something within, and you conform to the within. You conform to what you know in your heart. In other words, you're conforming to God's way. And you become a bit more adapted to Him and to His way. And then that means that He has to support what you are becoming. See? In obeying Him. He then has to support. You have to look to Him for support and for reinforcement. Whereas if you adapt to the environment, adapt to the new circumstances, adapt to the temptation that you're falling into, then it becomes your support. Then you need it. You need your booze. You need your marijuana. You need your consorts. You need your video games, your gambling. You need your education. You need other people's support. Are you a people pleaser? You need their support. See? You become dependent upon them, and you change. So you change, you become dependent upon them, you give up your life. It's a lose situation. But if you could learn to stand back and watch, and cling to what you know is right in your heart, then not only do you shine a light for others in an otherwise dark world, not only do you not fall, not only do you not give up your energy, but you actually grow in character from that experience. You grow. What did Christ say? Overcome evil with good. See? Overcome evil with good. My name is Roland.